Welcome to the Women Leaders Association podcast, where we believe we go further, faster, and have more fun when we go together. Be sure to tune in each week to hear an empowering message from the world's top women executives, trailblazers, entrepreneurs, and all-around fierce female leaders. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I will be taking you on a deep dive of each message to equip you with the principles, strategies, and tools you need to start crushing your goals, increasing your impact, creating work-life harmony, and did I mention have more fun? Because when you love what you do it better. The Women Leaders Association is the world's largest women executives association with over 30,000 women in executive and leadership positions who are committed to the development and advancement of women in the corporate arena. If you would like to get involved in a Women Leaders Association chapter, would enjoy daily podcasts, or you desire to become a part of the Women's Mastermind group near you, simply go to womenleaderspodcast.com. Now let's tune in for this incredible message. On today's episode, hear from Anne Shoemaker. Anne is a career advisor, strategist, and coach for executive and aspiring executive women. She applies her 20 plus years of experience as an executive and leader in corporate, nonprofit, privately held, and early stage startup businesses towards supporting and elevating women into positions of influence in their careers and communities. Welcome, Anne. Hey, welcome back to the Women Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Julianne Kirkland, and I am so excited Anne is with us today. Welcome, Anne.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about how you got started in this journey. I know you have coached and helped hundreds of women. So what was your point of something's got to change here? Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I had been in a really challenging work environment. And I knew it wasn't a fit and I knew I needed to leave, but I wasn't really sure what was going to be next for me. So I was going through this kind of self-discovery, and somewhere along the way, when one of the books or podcasts that I was listening to, the message came through of look at your nightstand. What books are you reading? Look at your podcast, see what you're listening to, and kind of starting to get clues about where I was investing my time and what I was learning. And it was just so obvious that I was very interested in women and career women's stories, business women's stories. So I knew that I wanted to do something that was supporting and elevating women. I knew that was the purpose, but I didn't know how. And through, some networking and lunches that I had with past colleagues, they were like, I've always come to you, as kind of a guidance or a counselor. And, several people encouraged me to look into coaching. So I did, and got so nervous when I got started, but it's been a great journey. I love hearing women's stories and helping them as much as I can.
Yeah. I mean, and that's my favorite thing about this podcast. And, I always say part of the pitch when people are pitching to be on this podcast, right? It is, talk about what you do and your titles and your achievements and all those things, because we do work really hard for those and they are very important. And at the same time, we're all people. We all have life experience. We all have story. And that's why I love doing this podcast, because I love truly connecting with women and hearing their story and what they have overcome. I don't care if you're the CEO or the janitor, you have a story to share. And I love that. I also resonated so much when you were talking about, whatever it is that you're listening to that said, check your nightstand. What are you allowing to come into your life? Right. I remember when, I had a salon company years and years and years ago, and I had some very dramatic employees, right? As you can imagine in the salon world. But one of them was it's drama all the time. And I was like, what do you do? Tell me about your day once you go home. She was like, well, I watch reruns of The Bachelor. And I'm all of these things that she was allowing to come in, right? The voices that she was allowing to have influence over her life were high drama, high chaos. And if that's what you're allowing to come into your space, that is going to have an outer effect.
Yes.
Period, end of story. And so I love that you were able to take that lens of, okay, well, what do I really enjoy doing? What matters to me? What lights me on fire? Yes. And it was helping women in this way. So talk a little bit about, now that you're okay, I'm doing it, I'm coaching, what kind of really got you going of okay, yeah, I'm good at this?
Yeah, I think, anytime you start something new, you really want some feedback, right? And I sent out a message, launching my business, and I had a couple of women who responded who, frankly, I was like, these people, like they intimidate me, like they want to work with me, where I kind of felt like, oh my gosh. I mean, there's lots that we can say about imposter syndrome, but I definitely felt very humbled and very quickly, almost sick. I was like, oh, now I've got to show up because I've
Right.
built the website and I've said I have the service, and now here they are. And I'm like, wow. So what kind of got me over the hump was meeting with them and just being honest and saying, hey, you guys know that I'm just starting out.
Mhm.
And, it would be super helpful to me if at the end of this, if you would agree to give me some feedback. And then we just focused on them for, 6 weeks or 8 weeks or however long we worked together. And at the end, they did give me some feedback, and most of it was good, but some of it was constructive. And it kind of helped me say, like, it helped me have a mindset of knowing that I can partner with other women on this journey
Mhm.
too. It's not just me across the table as coach and them as client, but also that we kind of are in this together. And that has been so rewarding. I love working with women in this way.
Yes. And I want everybody to grasp onto that. If you are starting anything new, how important that is. We hear about beta launches. I mean, even all of our technology, right? There's beta programs and everything happening like that. And it's like, there is so much value in putting an offer out there, even if it's drastically reduced, right, in price, to then have that exchange of, okay, let's get feedback. Like, I desire to grow, I desire to learn, I desire to meet you where you have the expectation to be met. So it's so powerful for people to learn.
Totally. And I'm constantly encouraging my clients to take that first imperfect, courageous step in
Mhm.
a direction. And somehow, through society or upbringing or whatever, just being women, we have absorbed that we need to take the right step. And yes,
Mhm.
that would be nice. It would be nice
Right.
to step up to the plate and hit a home run on the first at bat, but it just doesn't usually happen. You got to take a couple swings. You got to get some feedback, get some coaching, get some, I don't know, some experience. And we do that, I feel like, when we're maybe just starting out in our careers, is we kind of say, oh, it's the first job, I'll just see. But once we have more responsibilities, we have more commitments in our life, it becomes really intimidating to take a new step and try something new after we've gone so far down one path. But I'm always encouraging women to take the imperfect step without expectation of what's going to come. Just get the data back
Yes.
of what your experience was and how the other person reacted. That's where we're going to learn.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say probably in the past 5 years, it has become even harder for that step of imperfect action because of social media and the awareness that everybody has of the highlight reel, right? And so you think like, oh, these people are launching a business, and oh my gosh, they're already millionaires, and oh my gosh, they already have all these clients and all. And it's like, wait a minute, they're not
Right.
sharing how they've been building that for the past 30 years.
Yes.
Right. And so it's so
100%.
important. And I just want everybody to grasp onto that, to take that step forward. Do you want it to be perfect? I'm sure. Is it going to be? No, sure not. But to take it. And oftentimes it's in that step, right? It's in that working out of the belief in yourself, the faith that you have that this is going to work. It's in that motion, right, that allows you to have the experience of going, okay, now I'm going to pivot. Now I understand which way to go. Because if you're just sitting back going, trying to work it out in your head, it's always way worse in your head. 1,000%.
100%.
Which is why it's so important to have a coach. So what type of woman comes to you for help?
Yeah, typically it's a woman who is maybe 20 years into her career, and she's at a point where she's got a lot invested. She might have invested formal education, dollars, time, clients, or ranks in business, and she's at a point of inflection. She's ready to change something. Sometimes it's to stay within the same career and to go for the higher rung on the ladder. But a lot of times it's to change. And
Mhm.
a lot of times, she's scared, and and embarrassed about being scared. All the feelings of, I don't like my circumstances. I want to try something different, but how can I replace my salary? Or, what will people think? Or, I have my family commitments or whatever, all of which are real. And I don't mean to minimize them, but that's where I come back to the importance of working with a coach or having somebody in your really inner circle who can encourage you and challenge you in equal measure to say, let's just take the smallest, lowest risk step in a direction and get some of that feedback. But it's typically someone who is considering making a change and they just need a co-pilot to kind of help them navigate.
Right. And the beautiful thing about having a coach is that you are not in the emotion of it. Right. And they are, and our brain, like I'm training myself, up leveling my coaching certification, all that to be neuroscience based. And our brain cannot function logically and emotionally at the same time. Right. And so if we are coming to our coach in this like high emotional state of, I got to feed my kids, I got bills to pay, I've invested, right, XYZ, that's very emotional. Right. And so for the coach to be able to now apply the logic behind it and kind of open up that safe space for her to experience all of those emotions safely, right? Yeah. And then to move forward. And so I love that you're doing that for women because there's just not enough of it in this world.
Yeah, sometimes we need help holding space. I mean, I think that is definitely a role of coaching, is saying, I'm investing this time in myself. There's somebody who's going to meet me there. And we're just going to, block distractions and really dig into what's the obstacle or what's the opportunity, what's the possibility, and really play with all of those notions that otherwise we just wait till the end of the day and we're falling asleep and we think about it, or it's first thing we think about, but then our day gets away from us. This is where we dedicate high value time into really getting in touch with what it is we want and how we can get there.
Yeah, it's so true. And what have been some of the processes or the, roadmaps or frameworks that you have developed through your process, your signature process, right, that has really helped women to elevate?
Yeah, well, sometimes it's really getting in touch with what's factual and what we're experiencing kind of emotionally, right? So an exercise that I learned from a coach a while back is, just taking the line and drawing it straight down a piece of paper and putting the facts on one side of the paper and putting our fears, uncertainties, and doubts on the right side. And sometimes we just believe that what we're fearful of or what we doubt is the fact. It feels so certain to us that I can't, go from being a lawyer to, opening a boutique and have the same lifestyle. Like that's just factual in our brain. We're like, that's the fact. And yet people do it, So it's kind of understanding, okay, that's a belief, not a fact. So that's one framework that I really like to try to help women, at least at the outset of this kind of overwhelm of, kind of discomfort with where I am / desire to get somewhere else. It's like, let's separate out what's reality and what's our beliefs. That's one thing I like to do.
Yeah. And it's so powerful to do that. Again, back to my salon example, I would have so many young women come in after college. And they're like, I wasted all my parents' money going to a 4-year college thinking that I needed to do something, to be more, to achieve more, to earn more. Right. And here they are doing hair and making, $100,000 a year.
Right.
But their parents had this belief that, oh, no, you can't. No, you have to go get a 4-year degree. No, you have to do it this way. Right. And so we're often not even aware of the beliefs we have that are passed down from the limiting beliefs of those in front of us.
100%. And that's a huge part of what I am passionate about and encourage the women that I coach is to really make space for that inner voice to come up, because, maybe the young woman who's doing hair at age 22, she might have wanted to do hair at 18 and couldn't or didn't, wasn't able to convince her parents or couldn't convince herself that was a worthy profession. But, at 22, or maybe it's at 42, she realized this is really what I want to do. So I want to always encourage women to take the time and the space to let that voice be heard, because there's only one. Like, nobody else can hear what's going on inside of you. And it's up to you as a woman to honor that voice and to listen to it. Because as we all know, if we don't, at some point it'll start screaming. So
It's so true.
better to listen to it when it's a whisper.
That's right.
Get ahead of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hard.
And two, you know, I'm sure you have encountered this, working with women who have been, you know, kind of in a field for a certain amount of years. And, you know, most likely they are married at this point and have a family if that's the road that they have chosen to travel. But they have probably siloed their lives, right? Like, I show up this way as a mom. I show up this way as, you know, in my friendships. I show up this way at work. I show up this way. And it's like, but when we do that, right, when we push down other parts of who we are, like, submission will always lead to depression, right? We can't continue to do that. And I love, again, back to your experience of looking around you and going, wait a second, what actually fuels my soul? Like, what brings me alive? And so talk about some of the things that you do to help women who are in that particular journey of like, I know I need something, I don't know what it is.
Right. Well, a couple things, and they're kind of two sides of the same coin. One is to really be cognizant of what brings them energy. And I just tell them, you know, as simple as pulling out the notes app on their phone or a piece of paper, you know, and just jotting it down between our sessions. Like, when did you feel excited, alive, energized about an idea or anything? And sometimes it's not happening. You know, they're in a slump and it's not happening. In which case I would say, let's do it on the other side. Like, what really ticked you off? And I mean, not necessarily that we're going to come in and just have a gripe session, but typically when we are feeling frustrated or angry, it's because there's a values conflict that's happening. So I would like to try to find out, okay, what's the thing that made so-and-so mad? You know, it's like, my boss, he's always showing up late or whatever to whatever. And it's kind of like, okay, it sounds like maybe respect. So is the value that's really being violated here. So trying to understand what's in the environment that is supporting their growth and their energy and kind of bringing them life, and what is in their environment right now that is not, and trying to help them see, you know, what are the things that I can control and articulate and try to work my way out of, or is this just maybe not a great environment that I'm in, situation that I'm in, and I need to be in a different career or, you know, industry that supports those values more. So values are such a insight.
Absolutely. And I've heard it said before, and I love it. I love alliteration anyway, but I love how it's two indicators, right? It's how I look at passionate and passivity. Are you super passionate about it, or is it really pissing you off?
Right.
Because either one of those is something inherent in you that's being rocked.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's a great indicator of, okay, something needs to move, and I can't change the world, but I can change my response to it. So therefore, what am I going to do about it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's exactly when I was doing this kind of introspective work about what I was going to do next. And I was looking at all these stories. It's all the books and the podcasts that I was reading, you know, were about women who were overcoming these challenges, whether systemic or internal, and really pushing forward based on what was lighting them up or what was kind of being violated in their environment, and saying, I'm pushing back against that. And that's super inspiring to me.
Yeah, absolutely. So have you had a client experience before where, you know, in that journey that you learned something totally new and are now able, because I feel like that's how it works, right? Like the longer we do it, the more clients that we have, we are open to more perspectives and history and all the things that they've learned, and we're like, oh my gosh, and we can, you know, start to build these unique puzzles and pictures and paintings and everything like that. So talk about an experience where you learned something significant.
Oh goodness. You know, I'll share a little bit of a story that a client told me one time. You know, I was talking to her. She was at a place where she was feeling very disempowered. And I was trying to find out, you know, what's a time when, you know, you've been in an environment where you feel really empowered, and trying to help her kind of reconnect with the strength that she has as a person. And you just never know what somebody's going to say. And she said, she was like, oh, horseback riding.
Wow.
Let's talk about that. So we spent 20 minutes talking about, the feeling and the way, what you have to do in order to control this beast that you're on, and the dangers and all those things. And so I don't know that this is maybe exactly what you were going for in terms of maybe a transformation, but we were able to, through that kind of embodiment that she was able to get to in our session, kind of use that as a gauge for, her job search and kind of how she was feeling with, sitting down with different leaders. And is this a person that she feels like she could be kind of in control the way that she feels when she feels empowered on a horse?
Yeah.
As kind of a metaphor for the feeling that she was going for.
Right.
So it was kind of almost like a somatic coaching type of experience.
Yeah.
And so that was something that I did not see coming.
Yeah.
When I asked her that question, I thought she was going to tell me about sitting in a boardroom, or making a presentation.
Right.
And she just went straight to that. And I was like, okay, great. This is where she feels it. Then let's try to see how we can bring that full focus and empowerment to a career situation.
I love that. And I think, again, because especially women, we are so multifaceted, and it's like, I schedule play in my day. Like on my calendar, I have playtime, and I'm going to be outside with my dogs. I'm going to be with my kids if it's summertime, right? Like because I come alive. They remind me, the silliness of play reminds me of joy and creativity and spontaneity. And so to actively put that in my calendar has changed so much for me, to be able to say, I am choosing to invite this energy into my life every single day. And so I love that example that you gave with the woman and the horse, because again, we can, even as coaches, almost show up with this mindset of, okay, I'm talking to this woman executive, this is how it's going to be, right? And then she throws a horse example at you, right? But you held the space, you allowed her to really connect back to that moment and feel that power, that energy shift, and then to start making decisions moving from that place of empowerment. That's super, super powerful.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thank you. And with another client that comes to mind is, she was really she was a business owner and really in a hard place, and in a lot of ways, just really stressed and feeling a lot of pressure. And I asked her, kind of a similar question, but it's kind of like, what does she do when she just wants to relax and have fun? What kind of feels like play to her? And she was in a consumer packaged goods industry. And she was like, now this is like my life and my business, but I used to just love to bake, and cook and, be in the kitchen and stuff. She's like, it's been years. And so we kind of put a plan together where she would bake something and take it to a neighbor just out of the blue, unsuspecting or whatever, just to try to like reconnect with some of that joy, kind of to your point of playing with your dogs or interacting with your kids. It's kind of like, man, sometimes we can spiral so far away from where we started that we get totally lost. Right. So it is important to have somebody in your corner, a coach, a friend, or somebody who can kind of ask a question or make a suggestion that helps get us out of that spiral.
Absolutely. And yes, having inner circles and friends and family is great. And at the same time, I will always recommend somebody get a coach.
Yeah.
Because they have a different lens to which they see you through, right? They have that, their own, what they've been through lens that they also look through of what you're saying. Hey, I'm going to become an international best-selling author, right? And they're like, but you've never written a book.
Right.
Are you sure you're going to? And it seems like they're protecting you, right? It's all good intentioned.
Right.
But the truth is they're looking through the lens of the limiting beliefs that they hold. Whereas a coach is like, let's do it. Come on, bring it out. Let's go. Right. And so I always want to encourage anyone who is in life. If you are alive, you need to have a coach in some shape, way, or form. Just because of how it, again, allows you to really tap into who you are, who you're becoming, and all of the power that's associated with that.
Agreed.
Yeah.
100%.
So how can people connect with you?
Yes, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. That's the platform of choice most of the time. But I also have Instagram at Career Advisor Ann, and my website is annshoemaker.com.
Awesome. I love it. And Ann, what's one last piece of advice that you would give to the listener who, is just now in this great state of energy because she just feels so alive and so motivated and inspired. And then she's going to get out of her car and she's going to take that next step and she's going to go, oh, I don't know, what do I do now? Like what is a practical piece of advice that you can give her for her next step?
So this is just a short little phrase, and we're going to give credit to Brene Brown, but it may or may not have originated with her. But it's clear as kind. And I think that this can apply to ourselves and as leaders, to our family, as leaders in our workplaces, but also to ourselves. Being very clear and listening to that voice inside of us is the highest form of self-respect. And also when we're working with, in relationship with others, being very clear about our expectations of them or hurts that we may have, our instinct to repair, all those things, making sure that we're very clear and direct in what we need. And that's a kindness for everybody, for yourself and for the other person.
Oh, that's so true. That's so true. Oh, and thank you so much. What a great conversation. Again, I feel like we need more of these happening in the world. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We will be sure to drop all of Ann's links in the show notes so that you can connect with her. And that's all we have for you today, my friends. Remember that if you are looking to join a Women Leaders Association near you, to head over to womenleaderspodcast.com. Bye for now.